Alright, so up next we've got the Dragonhawk Mast Tour rotary pen. So yeah, let's open it up and take a look. Of course, it's got like a little magnet on the tip of the box. We've got the battery, and we've got the actual part of the machine. Now, the thing that I love about this thing straight away, does it have charge? Yeah, cool, it's got some charge. Sweet. Let's have a look. What else we got in here? So we've got a clip cord if we want to. So you can actually use this, you can add a clip cord to the machine so you don't have to use it as wireless, but personally I wouldn't really use this. I would just much rather go for the wireless. You're better off just making sure this is charged before every tattoo that you do. I love how the button, super easy, you just hold down and press it. On other machines like the CNC, the button's kind of really hard to press, sort of hurt your thumb a bit, so that's cool. And it's really simple. This is you can't adjust the stroke on this, and it's a fixed 3.5 millimeter stroke. So it's like an all-rounder kind of machine, good for lining, packing, shading. You can do a bit of everything. It is a bit difficult to line with when you get up to the thicker liners, like the the 9s, the 14s, and things like that. But anything up to like a 7 line is easy with this. You can do a 9, but anything above a 9 starts to get a bit difficult. You can take off the tip of the machine. So you can autoclave this, which is awesome. Now, I know most of you guys watching this won't have an autoclave, so you're much better off just wrapping it and making sure that you don't contaminate your machine. But if you do, like when you start working in a shop and stuff and they do have an autoclave, it's good that you can unclip the tip of the machine and put that in the autoclave, because a lot of pens you can't do that. So cool. Let's put a cartridge in there and see how it sounds. So yeah, another thing I like about the machine is it's super cleanable. There's no kind of like difficult spaces to sort of get in and have to clean, so you can just kind of yeah, very easy to maintain. Nice and light. It's only 82 grams, which is super light for a machine. It barely feels like you're holding anything. So yeah, the price is only 143 bucks, and that includes the battery, which is really good for an entry-level machine. This is kind of like good enough to tattoo actual people with, but still cheap enough that pretty much anyone can kind of get. So my initial thoughts, I love how simple it is. It's super light, feels good in your hand, and there's no, you can't mess around with the stroke, and it's really easy to change the depth. You just kind of rotate it in this part here, and yeah, there's no kind of like lots of little twisty things that can kind of come off like in some other machines, like the battery's in one compartment, and then you've got the grip, and then you've got the needle depth. So it's all, yeah, it's nice, sleek, and kind of simple. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this thing plays out. We're going to give it a whirl into practice again and see how we go with it. Of course, I've taped up the Dragonhawk pen and it's ready to go. We're going to be doing a simple little design, just a cool little traditional style anchor. And yeah, I'll kind of let you know how I feel about the machine as I'm using it, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and kind of how it handles in terms of lining, shading, and packing, so that yeah, you guys can make the choice as to whether or not this machine's one that you want to get. All right, so I got it running on 8 volts. Using a 10 gauge 7 round liner from Quadrant, and we'll just put a little bit of Vaseline over the tattoo to start with, and then we'll get straight into it. Okay, so straight away I can tell using this machine, it's really comfortable to hold. So it's quite easy to hold steady just because of the shape of the machine. And when you put a bit of grip tape on the end of it, it is easy to kind of hold it steady. It doesn't have a ton of power. It only goes up to 11 volts, and it kind of starts to sound funny once you put it past 9. But I've got it on 8 volts right now, and it's putting in lines fine. But I'm only using a 7-liner, so anything from a 3 to a 7, you'll be able to get in no worries with something like this. It is a direct drive machine though, so you do have to be a little bit careful. If you press too hard, it's not going to back off and you can show out the skin. So just something to be aware of. But yeah, it definitely does have enough power to push in the sort of the smaller liner groupings, which is good. All right, so I'll just switch to a 3-liner now. We've got this on 7 volts, so we'll see how it goes with the final lines. All right, so that's the line work done. And yeah, it's turned out really good. As I said before, super comfortable to hold and doing the lines. It doesn't vibrate a whole lot, so it's pretty easy to get some steady, clean lines. Doesn't have a ton of power though, so I wouldn't want to use anything bigger than a 9-liner for something like this. If you want to do kind of big, bold, traditional pieces, you'd probably want to get something with a little bit more power. For smaller, fine line stuff, the Mast Tour is pretty good. Also love how the machine's wireless. If you're just starting out in tattooing, you sort of won't understand it's a whole lot, but after using clip cords for years and years, you really do appreciate kind of not having like a cord everywhere. It makes it a lot easier to work with. So definitely love that it's wireless. Highly recommend that you get a wireless machine when you start tattooing, whether it's the Mast or something else. That's pretty much it for the lining. Right now we're just going to move on to putting some blacks in for the shading, and then after that we'll start with the color. So I've just been shading with the mask for a bit. One thing that I don't actually like is when you turn the machine on, but sometimes when you turn the machine off, what will happen is that the needles will stay sticking out of the cartridge. Yeah, it doesn't happen often, but I noticed it happen a couple of times throughout the tattoo. It's not like that big of a deal. It's kind of common with sort of entry-level machines as well. It's just a bit of a hazard. So if you have like a machine, lying down on the bench, facing towards you, and then the needle's hanging out, if you accidentally bump it, you get a needle stick injury, which is definitely not what you want. When you get to sort of like the more expensive machines, they have a mechanism that whenever the machine turns off, it automatically retracts the needle so that it never has the needle sticking out when it's on. But yeah, the mask doesn't have that. So But most entry level machines don't. That's more of like a once you get like over the $500 mark. You can see that the needles are sticking out the tip of the cartridge when they should be, yeah, inside of it, which is not good. Yeah, it should be like that all the time when it's off, but not a deal breaker. All right, so we just did the black shading with the mast, and it turned out pretty good. It hits quite soft, so it is a good machine for shading. I'd love to use this stuff for some more black and grey type work. I definitely like it more for shading than I did for lining. Yeah, it hits super soft, and it's kind of easier to just kind of build up your layers. So yeah, I think I definitely prefer to use this for more like realism, black and grey type work as opposed to traditional everything kind of hard outlines. It still can do like fine line stuff, like anything up to a 7-liner, but I much prefer to use this machine for shading. So we've got our blacks in. We're going to put some color in over this anchor, and yeah, see how it looks, and then yeah, wrap up the tattoo, and I'll give you my final thoughts on the machine. All right, so just finished the tattoo using the Mast Tour pen, and this is how it's turned out. Super happy with how it looks. Yeah, I guess I'll just give you my kind of my final thoughts on the machine, whether or not I recommend it. So, but before we kind of get into like the handling, in terms of the price, this machine's only 143 bucks, which is really good. I give that like a 9 out of 10. You know, traditionally in the past, if you want to, get a tattoo machine that was like of a professional standard, it kind of start at 500 and then they go all the way up to like 2 grand. So 143 bucks, pretty much anyone, that's kind of within reach of just about anyone. There's a ton of value in that. And also the quality, for the price you're paying, the quality is also excellent. The machine, it didn't heat up or anything like that. The voltage was consistent the entire time that I was using the machine. It was silent the entire time. Nothing kind of weird happened. I didn't hear like any kind of weird noises coming from the motor. And yeah, it was super consistent. It hit nice and soft. It hit consistently. So for the quality, I'd give that a solid 7. The only thing that kind of, I guess, I didn't like is that the machine didn't have the power to sort of handle higher voltages. So on the top, you've got 6 all the way to 11 volts. But once you start getting past 8, the machine starts to like go really loud and it sort of sounds a bit funny. It doesn't sort of feel right. So I definitely recommend keeping this on lower voltages. So that would mean, thinner liners and also, smaller needle groupings. This thing's going to thrive. So yeah, for quality, definitely give that, yes, a 7. And in terms of handling, so I liked it for the line work. I wouldn't use this for thicker needle groupings, as I said. It just doesn't have the power. And I have used thickener like a 14 one before, and it's really difficult to get them super consistent. And because the stroke is fixed at 3.5 millimeters, you can't really hang the needle out far enough in order to float the needle. So it gets really difficult to see what you're doing just because ink kind of splurts out all over the stencil while you're working just because of the shorter stroke. So aligning, it's not great. It'll get you out of trouble with like little stuff, like if you're doing, little bits of script, and tiny kind of tattoos that are like sort of, the size of the palm of your hand. It's great. And those are the tattoos that you should be doing when you're starting out, just because they're easier to kind of fix up later if you make a mistake. In terms of shading, I like this probably the most for shading. It hits really soft. It allowed me to build up a lot of layers when I was going through putting in my blacks, which was great. It didn't chew out the skin, even though it is a direct drive machine. Normally with direct drive machines, they're very unforgiving. If you kind of push too hard, it doesn't back off like a coil machine does, and it's going to chew out the skin. This, it hits quite soft, which is good. You have sort of like when you're kind of shading it, you have like a small margin of error when it comes to building up your layers. If you don't get it perfect, the blend right the first time, you can kind of brush over it a little bit, and it's not gonna be the end of the world. It's still gonna turn out okay. In terms of packing, not bad. I used a 7 mag for this entire tattoo when I was packing the color. It does pack it in, but it is quite slow, and you can turn the volts up a bit. I had it on 7 volts when I was doing the packing, but yeah, not kind of my favorite for packing. I definitely would have used like a more powerful machine for packing color, just because it gets the ink in a lot more efficiently. So yeah, in terms of handling, it's a good all-rounder machine. It's not a master of really anything. It's kind of like a jack of all trades. It's okay at lining, it's okay at shading, it's okay at packing. So it's a great starting point. So for handling, I'd probably give it a 6. So in terms of what I recommend this machine, this is great when you're starting out. If you haven't got a ton of money and you want to get something that's decent, and you're only going to be doing smallish tattoos, then this is perfect. Later on, as your skills improve and you get more and more clients and you decide to do more and more tattoos and you've got more money, definitely recommend upgrading. But to start your journey, the Mast Tour pen is a great choice. Highly recommend it. And yeah, all around solid machine. It's funny, 5 or 10 years ago, you couldn't get a good tattoo machine from China just because the quality was so bad. They just kind of didn't exist. But over kind of like the last 5 years, they've really lifted their game. And a lot of tattooers kind of turn their nose down at these types of machines, but the quality is dramatically improving, and I expect that to only continue over the next couple of years. Awesome machine, definitely would recommend it. If you want to check this out, I'll leave a link to the Mast Tour pen on the Dragonhawk website. Great, so I hope that helps, guys. If you have any questions about the machine and you're inside the Tattooing 101 Mastermind group, just drop me a message. More than happy to help you out, and I'll talk to you soon. Take it easy, guys.